because of such basic, simple problems which can be so easily taken care of. It goes to show, like I came with this information inside me that I must be writing stuff which kind of talks to people about also all these problems raise their heads out of the way of life, like water and sanitation problems cause malaria, cause diarrhea, cause various other issues. So when we are talking of even things like urban development, you know, our stories have to take all of these issues into account. Pushing authority, corruption, everything under the sun. So when we were developing characters, we were seeing to it that, you know, we were developing characters and talking to an audience which was facing problems which were far, far vast than the problems that we as individuals in educated classes face. Because our audiences are so varied, there are such cultural differences, such differences of languages. So, but somehow getting like that whole blend and mix together kind of made something turn out to be popular. And that information that was inside me because of having made those documentaries, it kind of translated itself through urban and very modern characters. I was able to see that change taking place. But at the same time, those contradictions somehow as an industry we were not able to kind of tackle as we grew, because we grew from a very small one-channel industry to 300 channels which we are today. And somehow through script writing we were not able to take forward those cultural differences in our storytelling. And those schizophrenias and contradictions kind of became quite a part of our growing up in this industry. I'm going to show a clip first, which is slightly funny because I knew this discussion is going to be serious. So I thought I'll like bring in something funny and then take off from there.
आशीर्वाद नहीं देंगी माँ जी?
क्या आशीर्वाद दूं तुझे बहू? सदा सुहागन रहने का आशीर्वाद? अरे तेरा पति तो तेरे साथ रहता ही नहीं है।
मैं वादा करती हूँ, मैं उन्हें लौटा कर ले आऊंगी माँ जी।
मर्द का पाँव एक बार दहलीज पार कर लेना तो वो आवारा हो जाता है। वो जाकर किसी वेश्या की दहलीज पर रुक जाता है और फिर उसे आरती रास नहीं आती।
माँ जी, आरती तो आराधना है माँ जी।
हाँ हाँ, तभी तो वो इस आरती को छोड़कर आराधना के पास चला गया।
इसमें मेरा क्या कसूर है माँ जी? मैं तो हमेशा भगवान के सामने यही प्रार्थना करती रहती हूँ कि मेरा पति।
अरे भगवान प्रार्थना
तो जीत रहा है। मृणाल सेन
धर्म होता है और फिर
ऋतु पर्णो घोष and look at पार्थो गांगुली।
तेरा पति
This script really sucks.
अब जा अपना धर्म और कर्म कर।
All right, cut it. God knows.
There's one more clip.
पर बोझ, और मेरी बदकिस्मती यही है कि तू बहू बनकर निर्दोष। अरे तेरा दोष तो यही है, जब से तू पैदा हुई है बोझ है इस धरती पर बोझ। और मेरी बदकिस्मती यही है कि तू बहू बनकर मेरे घर पर आई है।
Camera 1 focus. Take 2.
तेरा पेट नहीं भरा।
Camera 3 steady. Take 1.
चलो मैं कहती हूँ निकल जा, निकल जा, निकल जा इस घर से, निकल जा। खबरदार, खबरदार जो अपनी गंदी जुबान से मेरा नाम भी लिया था।
माँ जी, मुझे माफ कर दीजिए माँ जी।
मैं कहती हूँ चली जा, दूर हो जाए मेरी नजरों से, चली जा।
नहीं माँ जी।
हे भगवान।
How long will this shit continue?
बुला लिया, तूने मुझे ऊपर क्यों नहीं बुला लिया? ऊपर क्यों नहीं बुला लिया?
Ray would have said cut a long time ago. Yes, Ray was the master of the mise-en-scène. I'm just a robo. Here I only say action cut. Action cut.
ऊपर क्यों नहीं बुला लिया? ऊपर क्यों नहीं बुला लिया? ऊपर क्यों नहीं बुला लिया?
God नहीं बच्चे, जात जाता ही. No head or tail of anything. Okay, what the fuck is going on here? Who wrote these fucking dialogues? Why is she banging her head on the fucking wall? And you, what the fuck are you doing on the floor?
Meaning?
Arey!
Why? What's wrong in all that?
Shrishti, show me the script.
There isn't one, sir.
What? You mean to say they have been ad-libbing this entire scene?
Yes, sir.
On whose instructions? Oh.
Come. See, this is the set I was talking about. This is the whole set. Ek chai set mein.
Come. Oh my God.
Hello. Hi.
So this is your brilliant idea, Pallavi, to shoot without a script. Who the hell do you think you are? Are you the director or I am?
Partho, our writer walked out last night. Mind you, he was only the 6th writer to quit the show. Now we have no writer. And you know what my problem is?
What?
I have to deliver this episode to the channel by 6 p.m. tomorrow. So now you just shoot whatever it is you have to shoot, or there's going to be disaster.
I am not shooting the shit. I have a reputation too, you know.
It's a madhouse in here, isn't it?
Where isn't it a madhouse? Inside, outside, everywhere.
Government of India cannot do over 5 years. And if collectively we get together and actually put our best foot forward, we can actually make that change in this country happen. You know.
Thank you. Now we're going to hear from Michael Nash. He brought with him a clip from his film Climate Refugees. Michael.
Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about the film, and then we can watch the film, and I'll kind of finish up. But, you know, being in India, I think I find it interesting that it was Gandhi who said that it is health that is the greatest of all wealth, even much more so than pieces of silver and gold. And over the last 4 years, I've traveled pretty extensively around the world in search of a lot of things. One of the things that we found, I think, supports Gandhi's statement more today than ever before. And I think that, you know, we have a clip that you can take a look at. But it seems to be that our world, as we are getting bigger, it's also getting much smaller. And how one lives on one continent seems to affect the other on another continent. And so I think what's really interesting with you know, what we've done in Hollywood, what Sandra has done in Hollywood, and what could be done in Bollywood and Africa and Brazil, is that we're all really going to have to come together and figure this journey out in a much more livable and healthy way, or we're all going to be living in a problem. So the film is called Climate Refugees, and this is a trailer to it. And
Climate change is on a complete collision course right now with civilization as we know it.
We've had lots of civilizations collapse in the past from environmental causes.
I'm certain climate change is occurring.
Our responses at the moment are inadequate in terms of coping with these newly displaced people.
These are really the human faces of climate change.
Nature is now at war with us.
We're going to have to rethink climate change as being some remote environmental issue that the scientists will work out over there.
It's so huge. It's so big that's coming our way. It's almost beyond comprehension.
We are the same. Human race. No difference.
We're dealing with the fact that there's a gap between what the law provides and what the world needs.
People cross borders all the time.
That will change all sorts of equations. When you get scarce resources, or if you get a change so radical that people can't function, you have huge displacement.
The threat of refugees as a consequence of climate change is an enormous national security issue.
Europe is spending millions to defend itself against immigration from Africa.
When the Pentagon begins to think about what might happen, that's a clear indication that we have to start taking something seriously.
This is not a 100-year or 50-year issue, it's a present issue. It already is affecting the price of food you're putting on the table. It will affect the price of energy that you pay for your home and your automobile.
We can meet this challenge. We can transition to a low-carbon economy.
We can invent our way out of this problem.
We ought to be able to come together, not red versus blue, but in a red, white, and blue way.
The challenge is no longer to save the planet. The challenge now is to save civilization itself. And that is not a spectator sport.
Really came about through this journey that we took was we were actually in the searching for the human face of climate change, and what we found was a little bit more. And at the core of really all of this is this intersection where overpopulation, overconsumption, lack of resources, and a changing climate, regardless of whether man is causing it to change or it's natural, are all in collision with each other. And the outcome, one of the outcomes, is mass global migration. We've tracked 25 million people who are now crossing borders in search for food and water. And I think, as we were in the slums this morning, we all know what happens, when you start living in situations where you have water challenges. And for me, what really evolved through climate change was water. There's places in the world that have too much water, and there's places in the world that have no water. And climate change seems to be a threat multiplier with a target on the poor. Spent a lot of time in Bangladesh, spent some time in India, went all through Africa, China, South America. And the issue seems to be very similar no matter where we went. And so, when we go to these slums, as horrific as they are, by no means is India alone on this issue. And as we expand from 6.5 billion people to 9.5 billion people in the next 40 years, we're running out of resources with the people that we have right now. And the United Nations has said that for every 1 degree of Celsius that we go up, we're going to lose 10 to 12% of our corn, wheat, and grain fields. So when you start looking at these numbers, they really don't work. And so when organizations like this help to allow us to get those messages out, it really helps to illuminate issues that I don't really think a lot of people know about. One of the most interesting things that have kind of come from our journey after we've kind of went through the festival world is we've screened this film in community colleges in Dallas, to Harvard, to Oxford, to the University of Tokyo, and probably much like the doctors who will speak to you guys, professors and scientists come up to me after we screen in these universities, and they thank us for being able to tell this story in a way that they were never able to tell it. Scientists are not storytellers. They are in search of facts, and if someone asked me to be a scientist, it would be frightening, but probably the same if some scientists actually try to be storytellers or filmmakers. So I think what's really important with everything that's happening right now, and with that Gandhi statement of how health is, really the greatest asset that we have, we all really need to come together. And whether it's Bollywood that decides to do this or it's Africa, we can fix this world that we live in. But we're going to live in a really challenging situation if we don't get ahead of this storm. Speaking just specifically about climate refugees, it's really interesting. There's not a single law within the United Nations that actually protects these people. There are more climate refugees in the world right now than there are refugees from political or religious persecution. But everybody, all the G8 countries are trying to stay away from this because they don't want to accept the guilt on this because the payout is going to be enormous. So the United Nations is really trying to get their arms around this. And to tell you how, you know, and I say this humbly, but I was making art house feature films. And in 2004, 2 hurricanes slammed through the island that I grew up on in Florida and basically took out the house that I knew. And it hit me personally. And in America, we're so kind of caught up on this whole issue that I just wanted to really go around the world and see what was really happening. And we found the human face of it, and we found that disease is starting to cross borders, and malaria is going up to higher altitudes, and so, you know, organizations such as you know what we're all here for really help kind of expand that message. And I would ask all of you, whether you're, you know, in slums as, you know, working as doctors or filmmakers, to incorporate your passion into whether it's medicine or health or any social conscious issue that you're involved with, because the world probably needs it more than ever. And we are really blessed by being able to say, I mean, art and or television and film is really the art medium of today, you know, and unlike any other time that the human spirit has ever existed, we have our own distribution channels through cell phones and televisions and Twitter, and I mean, so it's, we can, the distribution is out there to really accomplish whatever we would like. It's just all of us, you know, following our passion. So I thank you all for having me here.
Thank you. That was terrific. And you know, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about how filmmaking helps you talk to policymakers, and if you actually see through your film any impact at the policy level, national or global.
Yeah, I'm not a political person, or at least I never was until I made this film. But since making this film, as much as I tried to make this film a nonpartisan film, in America, it's a very political issue. And what's really been interesting is not only in America have leading politicians who are creating policy that's going to dictate how America and perhaps other countries around the world are going to, you know, deal with this matter. We've also screened this film to heads of state around the world, to parliaments, to governments, to NGOs. And it's really become almost a Vince Lombardi-like speech. He's a great football coach in America. To fight this fight. So I do believe that, you know, films like this can be a catalyst. Television shows can be, you know, the movement that actually starts or manifests, you know, things to change. And we are aggressively seeking to use this film to, you know, bring some of America into the decision-making process on why it's so important that we sign a green energy bill and we kind of move past the roadblock that we're in.
Thank you. So next we will hear from Onir. And Onir, you can tell us if you'd like to start with a clip or talk to us for a while.
Talk a little bit,
okay.
And then perhaps. Thank you so much for having me here. I just was listening to everyone talk, and I thought that, you know, I would go back to 2005 when my first film, my brother Nikhil, released, and it was a film which one of the themes was HIV/AIDS and homosexuality. And I remember for me, when I was making this film, it was not that I decided that, okay, now I have to talk about AIDS, it's a health issue, you know. It was just that I had read a story, real life story, and it really inspired me. And it was the need to tell that story as a storyteller, as a filmmaker, that drove me to wanting to make that film. And while trying to make that film, of course, what the main difficulty that was not trying to get research material, because I could get in touch with NGOs. It was not so difficult, you know. I got in touch with Heroes and a lot of other NGOs, and information was available. What was difficult was how to get to make that film, because the minute you have, for me, honestly, it was not an AIDS film, but the minute it was perceived immediately by everybody that, oh, he's trying to make this AIDS film. And how do you get the finance? And suggestions would come like, why don't you at least make him bisexual? You know, if not, you know, something, you know. And you had constantly all kinds of pressure. And ultimately, one went ahead with friends and family who all came together, entire crew, everyone came together to fund that film. And theatrically, it was released by one of the biggest production houses, Yash Raj. They believed in the film, they released it. It got a mainstream release. I was very, very scared of the censor board, but even they, when they saw the film, they said it needs to be given a U certificate. I didn't have any cuts, which was, you know, because after I completed the film, that's when I realized what the content was. And the day I remember I was going to the censor board, I was shivering outside. That if they, you know, said that it was a problem because it was the first mainstream Bollywood film where the central protagonist was gay. And I thought that if there's a problem and the film can't be released, how do I return everyone's money? People trusted me, you know, I was shaking. I went into the censor board and they said that there's a problem. And I'm telling you, I was about to faint when they told me that. And they said, no, just relax. We like the film very much, but there's this card when the film starts that it's based on a real life story. They said, take that out and then we'll let you go without any cuts, you know. Of course, I was like more than happy because I knew that people who would see it because of the format would realize that it's based on a real life story. It didn't make any controversy, though constantly I'm told that you make controversial films, but it didn't, because the intention was not to make controversy. It was just trying to start a dialogue. It did very well on television, but what I wanted to talk, because Jennifer just mentioned about how, you know, when you came here, you realized how television penetrates, you know. But the demographic of the television viewers over the last 5 years has been changing drastically. So when my film released, it was taken up by a very good television channel and really lots of repeat shows. But over the years, now like we got back our television rights, and then I was told that now the audience that you have for television is supposed to be, I don't understand these terms, but suddenly it's like BC supposed to be, and they don't want to see this, you know. And